All right, so today we're diving deep into ANA Holdings' 2024 report.
All Nippon Airways, their parent company, the whole picture.
Exactly. We're going to try to figure out what's going on with their business segments, how are their financials looking, what about growth and, shareholder value, that sort of thing.
Big picture stuff.
Yeah, a lot of information packed into this report. Even their values.
Anshin Ataka Akarupu Denki.
What does that even mean?
Apparently, trustworthy, heartwarming, and energetic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's all in there, their strategies, sustainability efforts, the whole nine yards.
So we got to break this down into digestible pieces. You know what I mean? Give the people what they need.
The essential stuff.
Yeah.
Before we even get into that, I think it's important to remember the context here. ANA's history, their whole ethos.
Okay, yeah. Fill me in.
They've got these sayings like hardship now, yet hope for the future.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Trust and love are the threads that weave a beautiful world. It speaks to a certain resilience, right? A long-term vision.
For sure.
And think about some of the big moments in their history. You've got the opening of those massive international airports, Narita, Kansai.
Yeah, huge infrastructure.
More recently, the expansion of international slots at Haneda. It's not just logistics, it's reshaping their network.
Their global ambitions.
Right. So as we go through this report, keep that in mind. This is a company built on adaptation and growth.
All right, so let's jump into the nitty-gritty. Their air transportation business, the heart of it all, right?
Core business, for sure.
The report says the last year's been all about recovery.
Big time.
The numbers show it. Domestic and international passenger demand way up.
After Japan reclassified COVID-19.
Right, exactly.
And what's interesting is that supply and demand thing on international routes.
It's tight, isn't it?
Super tight, leading to higher unit prices.
Yeah, so people are flying again, and those seats are in demand.
They're commanding a premium.
Premium prices for sure. So this growth in passenger numbers, how's that playing into ANA's overall strategy?
Well, it's all about that multi-brand approach they've got going on.
Okay.
You've got ANA, the flagship full-service carrier.
Right, the classic.
Then there's Peach, the budget-friendly option for the cost-conscious traveler.
And of course, Air Japan.
Newest kid on the block, just launched international routes in February 2024.
Wow, so it's all about targeting different segments of the market.
Exactly. Not a one-size-fits-all situation here.
So they're trying to capture a broader market share with this multi-brand strategy.
Absolutely. Strengthen their competitive position, particularly within the Star Alliance network.
Right, makes sense.
It's about global reach, a combination of their own flights and those code-sharing agreements.
So it's not just about filling seats, though, right? They're actively trying to expand their network.
Oh, the international route network. That's a priority.
And growing that ANA Mileage Club membership.
Loyalty program. Got to keep those customers coming back.
For sure, for sure. And what about on the operational side of things? Any big changes there?
Well, they're making some serious moves to improve efficiency.
Like what?
That consolidation of their cargo terminals at Narita, moving everything into that new Terminal 8, it's going to be huge.
When's that happening?
October 2024. Game changer in terms of capacity and competitiveness.
Makes sense. And I noticed they're pushing this ANA economic zone idea. What's that all about?
It's their way of branching out, going beyond just transportation,
Oh, interesting.
leveraging the ANA brand into these contract and solution businesses.
So they're trying to diversify a little bit.
Diversify, expand. Their Blue Lake data platform that's playing a big role here.
How so?
It's all about analyzing data, finding those new revenue streams.
So it's like building a whole ecosystem around the ANA brand, not just airlines anymore.
Exactly.
So with all these changes and expansion, how are they handling the tech side of things?
Well, digital transformation, DX, it's front and center in their strategy.
Not just a buzzword.
Oh, no, it's deeply embedded in everything they do.
Okay, but what does that actually look like for them?
Well, they're really focusing on their website and the ANA app, making them super user-friendly, easy mobile, rebooking, personalized recommendations, that sort of thing.
Okay, so streamlining the customer experience.
Exactly, but it's not just customer-facing. They're implementing automation behind the scenes, too.
Like what? Give me an example.
They're testing self-driving towing tractors for baggage handling at Haneda.
Whoa, no way.
It's pretty cool. And then there's this whole ANA smart travel concept.
What's that?
It's their vision for a completely integrated and seamless travel experience.
Wow, sounds ambitious. So how are they making sure they have the right people to pull this off?
They're investing heavily in their digital talent, digital lead training programs.
Okay, makes sense.
They even created this ANA digital hangar team, the ADH team.
What's so special about them?
They're all about agile development, quick responses to market changes, innovation, that sort of thing.
So they're not just relying on external partners for their digital stuff.
Right, they're building that expertise in-house.
Makes a lot of sense. But they are partnering with some interesting startups, right?
Yeah, they've got this ANA Future Frontier Fund.
In partnership with Global Brain, their corporate venture capital arm.
Right. They're investing in some really cool areas. Next generation mobility.
Think eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff, and landing aircraft.
Exactly. Even space-related technologies.
Wow, it's a pretty diverse portfolio.
And they're figuring out how to leverage their existing customer base, focusing on carbon neutrality, enhancing aviation services.
So it's a forward-looking strategy.
Very much so. But the report is honest about the challenges they're facing, too.
Oh yeah, what kind of challenges?
Well, those quality control issues at Boeing, for one.
Right? That's been in the news a lot lately.
And the mandatory inspections of Pratt & Whitney engines, it's affecting their fleet operations.
Especially their Airbus A320 and A321neo aircraft.
Right. Potential delays in aircraft deliveries, impacting schedules, capacity.
Yeah, those are serious issues. What else are they worried about?
The labor shortage, for one.
It's a problem everywhere.
It is, and of course, the increasing risks associated with climate change.
Yeah, that's a big one.
These are factors that'll shape their environment in the coming years.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Talk about the financial side of things.
The numbers.
The report highlights a record high operating income for fiscal year 2023.
207.9 billion yen.
That's huge. What's driving that?
Several factors. Rebounding passenger demand, of course.
Right, we talked about that.
Tight international supply boosting prices. And the cost efficiencies from their business structure reform.
So it's both increased revenue and controlled expenses.
A winning combination.
Okay, so let's break down their main business segments. What's the performance looking like there?
Well, the air transportation business, that's the powerhouse. Operating revenues of 1,869.5 billion yen, up 21.4%.
Wow.
And that same operating income of 207.9 billion yen.
So they're doing really well.
International and domestic travel both saw strong recoveries.
What about the cargo side of things? NA cargo and mail business had a bit of a tougher time. Operating revenues down 45.6% to 185.7 billion yen.
Ouch, why such a big drop?
It's mainly due to the normalization of air cargo supply and demand after the pandemic.
Right, that makes sense.
So their focus now is on trilateral cargo routes, trying to maintain profitability in a changed market.
So adapted to the new normal. What about their other segments, like travel services?
They saw a nice rebound. Operating income of 1.371 billion yen on revenues of 78.5 billion yen.
A turnaround from previous losses.
And the trade and retail segment also did well. Both revenues and income are up.
So it seems like the travel resurgence is helping all parts of their business.
Definitely having a positive ripple effect.
Okay, so we talked about revenue. Let's talk about expenses. Specifically fuel.
A major cost for any airline.
Fuel and fuel tax expenses for ANA in fiscal year 2023 came to 391.3 billion yen, up 12.6% year over year.
That's a big chunk of change.
It represented 23.6% of their air transportation operating expenses. The increase is a combination of things: higher fuel consumption because they're operating more flights,
Right.
and higher fuel prices, of course.
Yeah, it's been tough on everyone. So where are they putting their money in terms of investments?
Capital expenditures in 2023 were up significantly, 105.7% to 240.4 billion yen.
Okay, and who's most of that going?
The majority is going towards the air transportation business. They're buying new, more fuel-efficient aircraft.
What kind of planes are they getting?
Boeing 787-10s and 787-9s for both domestic and international routes. Airbus A320-200neos as well.
And they're retiring some older planes too, right?
Yeah, they're phasing out those older Airbus A320-200s.
So it's a modernization of the fleet.
Exactly, improving efficiency and catering to different market demands.
So all this spending, how's their balance sheet looking?
As of March 31, 2024, their total assets increased to 3,569.5 billion yen.
Okay.
But they've got a strong liquidity position, 1,257.8 billion yen in cash and cash equivalents, up from last year.
So they're not strapped for cash.
Interest-bearing debt stands at 1,484 billion yen, and shareholder equity reached 1,044.5 billion yen.
Okay, what about their overall financial health? Any concerns there?
Well, they're aiming to reduce their total assets and increase their shareholder equity ratio to 45%.
So that's a medium-term goal for them.
It's all about financial resilience.
And their net income for fiscal year 2023 was 158.3 billion yen.
So they're definitely profitable.
Okay, so let's wrap up with some key performance indicators. How are they measuring their success?
Well, their available seat kilometers, or ASK, increased by 48.5%. That shows their passenger carrying capacity is up significantly.
And what about actual passenger traffic?
Revenue passenger kilometers RPK jumped by 56%,
So even more impressive growth.
leading to a higher load factor, 77.3%. They're filling more seats.
Good news for them.
And the report gives us indexed figures for yield and unit revenues, but the increases in RPK and load factor, they're really telling the story.
Strong recovery in demand.
They also keep a close eye on unit costs, that cost per available seat kilometer.
So they're focused on efficiency as well.
Absolutely.
So let's shift gears again and talk about shareholder value. What are they doing for their investors?
Well, they resumed dividend payments in fiscal year 2023.
A good sign.
They paid out 50 yen per share, the first dividend payment in 5 years.
So that's a sign of their confidence in their financial health.
It's a commitment to returning value to investors.
So are there plans to increase those shareholder returns in the future?
Yes, the report outlines their intention to increase returns starting in fiscal year 2026.
Okay, what factors will influence that decision?
Continued financial recovery, projected profitability, and balancing that with growth investments.
It's a delicate balance.
It is. They're also considering share buybacks to increase earnings per share.
But only if they can maintain a solid financial position.
Exactly. They're being cautious but open to the idea.
So what are their specific financial targets?
They want to return earnings per share to pre-COVID-19 levels
Okay, ambitious.
and increase that shareholder equity ratios to 45%.
Like we discussed before.
Looking further ahead to 2030, they're aiming for an operating income margin of 10% or higher.
Wow, those are some long-term goals.
They also want a return on assets, or ROA, of 8% or higher, and a return on equity, or ROE, of 12% or higher.
So they're really focused on profitability and efficient use of capital.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting their fiscal year 2023 ROE was already 16.5%.
That's pretty impressive.
They're targeting an ROE of 11–12% for 2025.
So they're aiming for sustained high performance.
And of course, they want to improve their return on capital and boost their share price.
How are they planning to do that?
Further expanding their international business, making those strategic growth investments, optimizing their asset allocation.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Managing their debt, they have a repayment target of 500 to 600 billion yen for 2023 to 2025.
Okay, so actively reducing their debt.
They also want to manage performance volatility and pursue those ESG initiatives.
So they're taking a realistic approach.
And they're even aiming for a target price-to-book ratio, or PBR, of around 2 times.
What does that indicate?
They believe the market is undervaluing their assets.
So they're optimistic about their future prospects.
Definitely.
Okay, so looking forward, what's the overall assessment of ANA's business?
They've made a lot of progress aligning with their corporate strategy. The Air Japan launch, the international route recovery, they're ticking off those boxes.
And they're focusing on that inbound tourism to Japan.
Smart move, given global travel trends.
So what are their key strategies for fiscal year 2024?
Maintaining those high revenue yields.
By carefully managing their passenger mix and adjusting fares.
Right. They also want to capture that recovering cargo demand, especially as they finalize that share exchange with Nippon Cargo Airlines NCA.
That's going to reshape their cargo business strategy.
Big changes ahead.
And their long-term vision is all about transforming their business model.
Full-fledged growth by 2030.
Focusing on profitability, strengthening their balance sheet, and embracing digital transformation.
It's a multi-pronged approach.
And the outlook for the airline industry is generally positive, right?
The IATA forecasts record global passenger numbers. The airline business is still a growth industry.
So wrapping up, we've seen a company that's bounced back from tough times and is now focused on growth.
They're investing in digital innovation, sustainability, and a multi-brand approach to capture new opportunities.
So a final thought for our listeners.
Given these global travel trends and ANA's ambitious plans, what do you think will be the biggest opportunities and challenges for the airline industry in the years to come? It's a dynamic landscape, and it'll be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Lots to think about.
For sure.
Thanks for listening.